When I was young, there was a destitute family in our village, headed by a man I called Uncle Liu. He was over 40 before he managed to marry, and his wife was disabled. They had a daughter named Anin, who was very sweet and adorable. Using his family as an excuse, Uncle Liu stopped working, and their home sank deeper into poverty. It wasn't until Anin was 4 years old that he discovered a path to riches, filming illegal videos of her. One summer afternoon, I was wandering around and passed by Uncle Liu's house when I witnessed a bizarre scene through the window. Anin, covered in dirt, was crawling on the ground, a dog chain fastened around her neck. Holding the leash was Uncle Liu himself. He was commanding her, sit, shake hands, lie down, stick out your tongue, roll over, all while holding a large handheld camera, pointed directly at Anin to film her. I was just a kid and had never seen a camera like that. So I stopped to watch curiously. And Anin, she obediently sat, shook hands, lay down, stuck out her tongue, and rolled around on the filthy floor. The grotesque scene left me frozen. I actually thought Uncle Liu had turned Anin into a dog. And I was terrified.
You're listening
when
to
I
a
got
story
home,
on Hecate
I immediately
audio.
told my parents. As soon as my father heard the story, he shot up from his seat. Without a word, he grabbed the phone, dialing as he walked out the door, speaking to the person on the other end. I learned later he was calling the police. It was dark by the time my father returned, and with him was a grime-covered Anin. She hid behind my father like a frightened little sparrow. My mother asked him about the situation. He said he had done everything he could. The police had taken someone in for investigation, but the problem was, Anin had no other relatives. Not a single one. So, in the end, my father had no choice but to bring her home with us. My mother then asked, "Where is her mother?" My father sighed heavily. "It seems the woman left. Anyway, she can't be found." My mother said nothing more. She just knelt down and spoke softly and gently to Anin. Gradually, Anin's terror began to fade. My mother bathed her and found clean clothes for her to wear. Only then did she look like she had some life in her. My mother even cooked a fresh meal for her, making more dishes than usual. The little girl ate quickly, ravenously, as if she hadn't tasted good food in a very long time. And by some unspoken agreement, no one mentioned her father. My mother prepared the guest room, and Anin stayed with us starting that night. Mom even slept with her. The next day, my mother had to go to work, only able to come home at noon to cook. My father worked at a computer shop in the district town and wouldn't be back all day. When they weren't home, they instructed me to stay with Anin and not to go outside for any reason. Food and drinks were prepared, and if anything happened, I was to use the landline to call them. But I was absolutely forbidden from opening the door. With no other choice, I had to play with Anin. We didn't have any fancy toys back then. Just rubber bands, marbles, small cars, and various board games. At first, Anin was a bit timid, but I quickly broke through her shyness with a toy car. She called me, "And try, big brother." And since I didn't have siblings, it felt very endearing. I gave her all my best toys. She was overjoyed, saying she had never had toys before. I also tried to teach her different board games. She was willing to learn, but she just couldn't grasp them. While playing Chinese chess, I explained that a captured piece was dead. She asked me, "Big brother, where do people go when they die?" I didn't know either, so I just repeated what my mother had told me. "They go to heaven." She let out a thoughtful, "Oh," and then muttered, "So the mountains are heaven?" I didn't understand what she meant at the time, but it wasn't just an idle comment. For the next few days, life was very peaceful. My mother adored Anin, buying fresh meat and vegetables every day, cooking different meals just for her. I grew very fond of her too, mostly because I didn't have to wander outside looking for friends anymore. Anin liked us too. She never once mentioned her father. She just said she wanted to stay here forever. My father assured her, "Of course, this is your home now." But the happy days were short-lived. One afternoon, my mother suddenly rushed home. She worked at the nearby factory and was always busy, so she would never come back in the middle of the day unless something was wrong. Sure enough, not long after, someone started pounding violently on our wooden door. Anin and I were playing chess in the living room. My mother opened the door, and to our shock, Uncle Liu was standing outside. He said he was there to take Anin home. My mother blocked his path, but he immediately became aggressive. insisting he would take an in. I was scared, but I still moved to shield an in behind me. My mother was no match for Uncle Liu. He shoved her aside and walked straight toward us. I was terrified, but I didn't move. He shot me a glance, gave a foolish laugh, and reached out to grab an in. An in was so quiet, she didn't resist at all. But my mother was frantic. She lunged forward, trying to push Uncle Liu away. But she was too weak, and it had no effect. Uncle Liu dragged an in away exactly like he was leading a small dog. My mother didn't dare try to pull an in back, probably afraid the girl would get hurt. The two of us just chased after them. And as soon as we were out the door, I heard the familiar sound of a motorcycle. My father was home. He had returned at the perfect moment. He was agitated, throwing his motorcycle down as he rushed over. He shoved Uncle Liu hard, roaring in anger, "You bastard, get lost. If you try this again, don't blame me for what happens." Uncle Liu just kept up his foolish grin, saying calmly, "I'm taking my daughter home." My father roared again, "How did you get out? I already called the police. Wait for them to get here and explain this." Uncle Liu knew force was useless. My father was tall and strong, so he said nothing, just giggled. Soon, the police and the village cadre arrived. I thought things would get better, but no, they got worse, because they weren't there to stop Uncle Liu, they were there to stop us. I remember it clearly. The village cadre was the first to speak, telling my father, "This is their family's business. Why are you in such a hurry?" This made my father even more frantic. I had never seen my father so furious. He challenged the police. "Why aren't you arresting him? He's abusing a child." The police gave a long-winded explanation that I didn't fully understand. What he did hasn't reached the legal level of abuse. He was already detained and educated. He'll repent. Yes. We can only arrest him if he commits a crime. If you take his daughter, you're the one committing a crime. My father was completely stunned. He wanted to argue with reason, but it seemed reason wasn't on his side. My mother had started wiping away tears. I couldn't bear to be separated from an in. I kept stealing glances at her. She was just too good. She wasn't even crying. My father argued for a long time but couldn't win against the greater logic of the police and the cadre. Because if he kept arguing, the police said they'd lock him up for a few days. And just like that, an in was taken away. As she left, she turned her head back to look at my parents. And at me. Her eyes were filled with reluctance. Dinner that night was silent. My mother hastily cooked, but as soon as she sat down, she was wiping her tears again. She said she had made the braised pork and loved most. But the girl wouldn't get to eat it. My father's brow was furrowed in gloom. But he still told us to eat first. He said he would think of a way. My mother asked what way. He said he would go online and search. My mother just kept crying, saying a girl as sweet as that. Taken back by that father, who knew how she would be tortured now. My mother's words made my father quit after just a few bites of rice. And he hurried to turn on the computer. Computers weren't common then, in the whole village. Only my father knew a little because of his job. The computer at home was rarely turned on, only when he needed it for work. And I was absolutely forbidden from touching it. But I knew that when the black box next to the monitor beeped, it meant it was connected to the internet. So, after hearing the beep, I snuck a peek at the screen. My father was looking up a lot of documents, including the Law on the Protection of Minors, which clearly stated that child abuse was prohibited. Then, he looked up the definition of abuse and the criminal charges for it. But after reading, he sighed. Apparently, treating his daughter like a dog wasn't enough to constitute a crime. Finally, I saw him staring at the civil code. The screen froze for a long time on one article. Article 1107. Orphans or children whose natural parents are unable to raise them may be cared for by relatives or friends of the natural parents. The next day, I snuck out to play again. I intentionally walked past Ann's house. Past that same window. But I couldn't see anything inside anymore because the window had been boarded up. In that moment, I just felt that whatever was inside must be terrifying. I threw a rock, shattered the glass, and then ran for my life. After running a good distance, I couldn't help but look back. I saw Uncle Liu standing right at the window, staring at me. It was glaringly bright outside, but he was shrouded in darkness. He looked terrifying, completely different from the giggling fool he pretended to be in front of us. I was paralyzed with fear and scrambled home. It was still far from evening. But when I pushed open the door, I saw my father was already home. He was sitting at the computer, typing non-stop. I felt a pang of guilt. I walked over and confessed that I had broken Uncle Liu's window. He turned and looked at me seriously. But he didn't scold me. He just told me to go to my room. I went in and closed the door. Not long after, I heard a knock. My heart hammered, but strangely, no one tried to open my door. And there was no loud talking outside. It was strange. But at the time, I was just scared about the trouble I'd caused and didn't pay it any mind. This was, in fact, a crucial moment, because after that, my father became a different person. Actually, I was old enough to understand. That rock wasn't thrown thoughtlessly. I desperately wanted Anan to get away from Uncle Liu. Because being trapped there, she was surely facing a nightmare. But I was also afraid my father would do something terrible. Afraid he would find a way to make Anan an orphan. This contradiction made me pay extremely close attention to my father's actions. And they were indeed abnormal. He began using the home computer frequently, every day after work. He would turn it on and stay on it all evening. I knew for a fact it wasn't for work. So I started spying again. It was a website called the Tianya Forum, where he had posted an article about Anan, but the perspective was that of Uncle Liu. At least from what I saw, he was posting under the guise of Anan's father. For the next few days, my father was glued to the forum, occasionally replying to comments. You're listening to a story, but the post didn't seem to get much attention and the comment count remained low. He looked unhappy. However, this situation resolved itself in just 2 days. And this was the part one understood the least. I had no idea how my father had obtained photos and videos of Anan. That's right, my father had gotten images of Anan tied with a dog chain. He posted all of them on the forum, and the post immediately started gaining traction. I saw my father sitting at the computer, the sound of his typing growing more and more frequent. Peeking over, I discovered he wasn't just replying to comments, he was deliberately projecting a sense of superiority. He used a self-centered, arrogant tone, emphasizing a few points. She is my daughter. I have the right to decide. If I want her to be a dog, she has to be a dog. She doesn't even have an opinion. What right do you outsiders have? Of course, I knew this wasn't what he really thought. But the outsiders didn't. As a result, the typing intensified. My father was waging a flame war against the netizens. They were cursing each other. After seeing those photos and videos of Anan, people were furious, just as my parents had been. As more and more users piled on, my father began to filter out the most aggressive commenters and replied to them with particular zeal. It felt like things were about to escalate from online to offline. Because I even saw my father send out his QQ number. It was like he was arranging a fight. I was completely baffled, but very quickly, I began to understand what he was doing. The next day, when my father got home from work early and was once again engrossed at the computer, we had a visitor. I called him Uncle Tran. He lived in the district town, so I rarely saw him. But I knew he wasn't just my father's high school classmate, they were best friends. I only learned much later that Uncle Tran was, to be precise, also a police officer. He did administrative work within the public security system, while he couldn't control the local stations. He could provide support from behind the scenes. He was the one who had given the photos and videos of Anan to my father. And this time, he had come to confront him. He stormed into the house, demanding to know what the hell my father was doing. They're already calling the district office. If you blow this thing up, I'll lose my job. My father, however, was completely calm. He showed him the screen, which didn't placate Uncle Tran, it made him explode, nearly ending their friendship right there. But just as quickly, my father pointed to the QQ interface. He had created a group chat and pulled in every single person who had been cursing him out. Then he showed a few messages he'd sent to the group. I am not the person in the post. But the little girl is real. I used a fake identity because I didn't trust that everyone would genuinely want to help her. But you all are different. You hate me so much you were willing to find and beat me up. The more you hate me, the more you will want to help her. So I am begging you, please, help me think of a way. Help her. Uncle Tran sat at the computer, utterly silent, chain smoking. On my father's screen, the messages in the QQ group were refreshing non-stop. I didn't know what they were saying, but it was clear everyone was incredibly agitated. After a long time, my father carefully asked, "What do you think?" Uncle Tran stared at the screen, somewhat stunned. "These people are intense. You haven't even said anything. And they've already deduced so much." Finally, he let out a deep sigh and nodded. My father then dragged a document he had prepared earlier into the group chat. Relief washed over his face, while Uncle Tran's brow only furrowed tighter. Their expressions were a perfect contrast. It wasn't until much later that I learned the plan to save Anan had truly begun at that moment. That evening, after dinner, Uncle Tran returned. He wasn't angry this time. He greeted my mother and walked straight to my father's desk. Coincidentally, my father had just finished something and was in a very good mood. After inviting Uncle Tran to sit, he eagerly showed off his results on the screen. "Look, we have these leads already." I snuck over too, glancing at the monitor. My father had laid things out point by point. Anan might not be Uncle Liu's biological daughter. Uncle Liu's wife has a disability, limb contracture, congenital fibular hemimelia, causing a limp. This implies a high probability of genetic defects, meaning a low probability of having children. It's very likely she has no maternal family with her condition. She was either abandoned or trafficked. Thoroughly investigate the social relationships of relatives on both sides, as this is closely related to guardianship rights. Focus the investigation on the disappearance of Uncle Liu's wife. She could not have left on her own, with her symptoms. She couldn't escape. Given Uncle Liu's abusive nature toward his daughter, he wouldn't have let his wife go either. In summary, the woman is likely dead. Whether it was manslaughter or murder, it's highly probable Uncle Liu is involved, possibly related to whether she tried to stop him from abusing Anan. If he is imprisoned, there's a chance to change Anan's guardianship. My father waited for a reaction. The more Uncle Tran read, the wider his eyes grew. After finishing, he finally uttered, "What the hell do these people do for a living? They are incredible." My father didn't answer, but shifted the subject. "So, about the investigation." Uncle Tran nodded blankly. "Leave it to me." After a night of discussion, they reached a secret agreement. What my father couldn't find, Uncle Tran would. Household registration records, medical files, birth certificates, and so on. My father would handle fieldwork once he received the data, because some registered information might not match reality. The next day, my father didn't go to work. Around noon, he must have received a call from Uncle Tran. He went out shortly after and didn't return until dark. Once home, he closed the door and called Uncle Tran. What I overheard was this: Anan's mother, a woman named Li Diam-ha, truly had no relatives. Even her household registration was a supplemental addition from the census 20 years ago. Before that, her origins were unclear. Exactly as the Tianya netizens had speculated, she was likely abandoned and drifted here, or trafficked and left behind because of her disability. This also proved one point: she had nowhere to go. Essentially, Uncle Liu and Anan were her entire world. Where else could she go? Therefore, her disappearance was critically important. And on the phone, my father and Uncle Tran had all but confirmed that she was dead. But where she died, how she died, that was incredibly difficult to investigate because there were no clues. And Uncle Tran wasn't pursuing an official case. He couldn't command local stations to summon and interrogate Uncle Liu. Another issue was Uncle Liu's side of the family. Uncle Tran found that he had also migrated here 30 years ago. And his registration was just as empty. Not only did he have no relatives, and didn't even have a birth certificate. My father recalled that when their child was born, they'd invited a midwife to the home. Children like that truly had no records. But what if the birth was a lie, and the purchase was the truth? Therefore, a key point emerged: the midwife from that year. So there were now two parallel lines of investigation. First, prove Anan was not Uncle Liu's biological daughter. Then find a way to strip his custody. Second, find out whether Li Diam-ha was truly dead, and if it was related to Uncle Liu. The next day, my father again skipped work and went out early. I was restless at home, desperate to know how Anan was doing, so I snuck out too. By coincidence, I saw Uncle Liu leaving his house. I thought he was going to the vegetable field, but unexpectedly, he headed toward the mountain behind the village. Seizing the opportunity, I circled to the side and knocked on the window. I missed an terribly. I was afraid she was being beaten. Soon, she came to the window. What I didn't expect was that she seemed uninjured, just dirty. When she saw me, her eyes lit up, and she called softly through the glass. "Big brother, what are you doing here?" "I came to see you. Mom, Dad, and I all miss you," I said. "I miss you all too. Big brother, can you take me out to play?" I froze. I knew I couldn't open that door. And even if I could, I couldn't take her away. But I also knew what my father was doing. So I smiled and told her decisively, "Of course, just wait a little longer. Okay? In a few more days, I can take you out to play." She smiled happily. I knew it. Looking at her dirt-streaked face breaking into a radiant grin, I hoped even more that my father would succeed. That one meeting led me to take an action, one that would prove incredibly important. That evening, my father was on the phone with Uncle Tran again. I could hear that he had hit a wall. Progress was not smooth at all. He'd run around all day, only to find out that regardless of whether Anan was Uncle Liu's biological daughter, they had long established a legal adoptive relationship on the household register. Therefore, legally, his custody couldn't be revoked, unless the second scenario happened. Something happened to Uncle Liu that prevented him from continuing to raise Anan. But on this point, Uncle Tran was stuck. He couldn't investigate a murder case based purely on speculation with zero clues. And without the local station's support for an initial inquiry, the criminal division wouldn't even give it a second glance. During my father's calls with Uncle Tran, I heard them repeat one question over and over. Where could she be hidden? It took me a few times to understand they were likely talking about Anan's mother's body. If she hadn't run away, and if they suspected she was harmed, then finding the body would prove everything. For days, I had secretly watched my father do all this, not daring to interfere. But that afternoon, I had seen Anan. I remembered her dirt-streaked face, smiling happily. I remembered the question she had asked me. Where do people go when they die? My answer was heaven. She had, Ed, thoughtfully. Then muttered, so the mountains are heaven? The mountains are heaven? The mountains. Today, Uncle Liu had also gone up the mountain. I finally couldn't hold it in any longer. I burst out to my father. The mountains. Anan said a place. It's the mountains. My father looked at me, stunned, and perhaps for the first time in my life, I was that resolute. The second day, the third day, everything finally came to a head. Uncle Tran came straight to our house to find my father. I was there. Before speaking to my dad, he rubbed my head hard and told me, "You're a sharp kid. Later, I'll tell your mom to give you an extra chicken drumstick." I just giggled foolishly. Then I heard him tell my father that on the mountainside behind Uncle Liu's house, they had dug up a body. It was Anan's mother, Li Diem-ha. Uncle Liu was the prime suspect and was about to be taken in by the criminal police. As for Anan, she would be temporarily sent to the district's social welfare service center. You're listening to a
specific
story
custody
on
issue
Hecate
would
audio.
have to
Wait until Uncle Liu's case was clear. But at least, Anan was free from the monster's claws. My father smiled so happily that day. He immediately opened his computer, went to the QQ group to share the good news. A flood of messages appeared. I couldn't see what they said, but they must have been happy too. Uncle Tran stood beside him, watching the screen, also very happy. I was happy too. I felt like I could finally keep my promise. I would take Anan to play everywhere. But things were never that simple. There was a long series of events that followed. But one came very quickly. That year was 2000, the year of the Strike Hard anti-crime campaign. According to what Uncle Tran heard, Uncle Liu confessed. He had killed his wife, Li Diem-ha, and buried her on the mountainside. He took the photos and videos of Anan to sell them. Soon after, his crime was determined, intentional homicide. And right at that time, the district organized a public sentencing rally. My father took me to see it, mostly as a detour. The main reason was that I had been begging to visit Anan in town. I hadn't seen her in so long. I didn't know if this earth-shattering change had made her feel insecure. At the rally, I saw Uncle Liu. His hands were tied behind his back as he was marched onto the stage to receive his public sentence. He was much thinner, his face devoid of any expression. I heard the loudspeakers call his name, list his crimes, and announce his sentence: death. The other prisoners more or less had scenes of weeping and wailing, as everyone brought to a public sentencing rally was on death row. And it was very likely they would be driven to the outskirts for execution right after the announcement. This was probably their final stop. So they were all crying, repenting. Only he wasn't. He just accepted it calmly. I felt then that he was truly terrifying. Perhaps he didn't feel a single shred of remorse. The rally hadn't even ended when my father pulled me away. We went to the Social Welfare Service Center. I finally saw an inn. She was spotlessly clean, a world of difference from when she was locked up. Though her clothes weren't new, they were tidy. She was so happy to see me, running from a distance, calling, "Big brother, you're here." A staff member took my father into an office to talk, while I played with an ant in the courtyard. We chased insects, grasshoppers, dragonflies, and butterflies, running back and forth. I even bragged that if she came back to the village, I could catch birds' nests and frogs for her. She was ecstatic. I thought my father was talking to the staff about bringing an ant home with us. But things were never that simple. That evening, when we went home, an ant stayed at the center. She didn't want us to leave either. Accompanied by a staff member, she walked us all the way to the gate. My father started the motorcycle. We had to go. The setting sun cast a long light as she sadly waved goodbye. I waved back. My father didn't say a single word the entire time. Night fell, as if something even more frightening was silently unfolding. At dinner, I knew something was wrong with my father. He was still abnormally silent. My mother noticed too. Before even washing the dishes, she asked him what was wrong. He said it was about an inn. Only then did I learn that our trip to the welfare center today wasn't just to let me visit her. And it wasn't to bring her home. That couldn't be done so quickly. It was because the staff there had specifically called my father to come. And Anne's health was not good. She had a very complex tumor in her head. The social welfare center couldn't afford her medical costs, so they notified my father to see what he thought. He had contacted them very early on, expressing his wish to adopt an inn. We were a rural household with one child, which the policy allowed. So with this critical illness, they informed him first. It was a critical illness. A very severe one. No wonder my father's brow hadn't relaxed for a second after talking to the center staff. My mother wept as she listened. It was just too cruel. And Anne's fate was so bitter. She had just escaped one huge pit, only to immediately fall into an even bigger one. And this pit, perhaps even my father couldn't fill it. Our family just didn't have that kind of money. It wasn't long before Uncle Tran heard the news and came over. My mother busied herself with housework, leaving space for the two men to talk. My father took a stack of papers from his briefcase. Just like before, the more Uncle Tran read, the tighter his brow furrowed. He smoked one cigarette after another. They talked about surgery, about Beijing, about needing several 100,000 yuan. Uncle Tran pointed to the computer and asked my father, "That thing, can you still use it? Can you rally them for help again?" My father ran his hands through his hair. It's not that I didn't think of it, but the people in that group already did their best. I already gave them the good news. I shouldn't bother them anymore. For them, this story already had a perfect ending. It's best to leave it like that. Uncle Tran shot back. What about an inn? What do we do now? My father was deeply troubled. Uncle Tran kept pushing, or rather, cornering him. The solution is right there. Even I can think of it. Don't tell me you haven't. I was so curious. Was there really a way? By then, I had some understanding of money. I knew my father only earned about 2,000 a month, and my mother a little over 1,000. We couldn't even save 10 or 20,000 in a year, let alone several 100,000. Uncle Tran couldn't have that much money either. So, what other way was there? I stared at that magical computer. An inn is sick. Estimated 400,000 in medical fees. We have no money, but there is one way that might save her. It might fail, and there will be a price. My father had already typed this sentence into the QQ group chat box but couldn't bring himself to send it. This QQ group, following the progression of the case, had been renamed, and how, meaning in Anne's well-being, but also everyone's. They were still chatting, discussing when to form a group to visit an inn. My father was still hesitating. "Forget it," Uncle Tran yelled, slamming his hand down on the keyboard. The message sent. My father was stunned. For a moment, the The group chat fell silent. A few seconds later, someone sent a message. What the hell kind of trick are you playing now? My father was frozen, his hands hovering over the keyboard, unable to type a single word. But that person immediately sent another message. Upload the documents. Hurry up. Uncle Tran urged him to. Hurry. My father fumbled to get the stack of papers from his bag. Fumbled to use the bulky scanner. And finally, fumbling, sent all the images to the group. After a long pause, messages began to appear, one by one. Brain tumor. The shadow is very clear. It's not a huge problem. Mid-stage. Not immediately life-threatening. I don't understand this, but I can ask around at Shihi Hospital tomorrow. I don't think 400,000 is enough. That doesn't even count the recovery and nutrition costs. Where are we getting that much money? Damn it, I think I know how to get the money. I guessed it too, but I don't think it's safe. Fraud? Illegal fundraising? Or some other crime? Uncle Tran was also staring at the screen. He was getting impatient. He took out his work ID, slapped it on the computer desk, and said, "Scan this for them, a bunch of legal illiterates. Use mine as a guarantee. It's absolutely not illegal." My father froze once again. If this goes wrong, you'll lose your job. My father was still hesitant. But Uncle Tran didn't hesitate at all. If this goes wrong, Anin will die. My father nodded. He scanned Uncle Tran's work ID and then typed into the group. I have a friend who works in this unit. He can help us avoid any legal problems. As soon as the ID was sent, the group exploded, because this wasn't just a work ID, it was a statement of determination. After that, the discussion in the group split into two topics. One was treatment. The consensus was that they had to go to Beijing. Anin was only 4. And this was a brain tumor. Craniotomy was incredibly dangerous. One small mistake could end her life or leave her with lifelong disabilities. The second topic was raising money. The basic treatment cost was at least 400,000, adding recovery, nursing, and nutrition. They'd need around 500,000. So, the goal was 500,000. It had to be donations. The people in the group pledged some money first. But it only amounted to a few tens of thousands. The difficulty was how to raise the rest. Appealing online will get some help. But not this much help. Think about why you all are in this group. It's because you wanted to beat me up. I don't believe they will donate to save a little girl's life. But I believe that to destroy me. Even if they don't have money, they will contribute in other ways. This will cause a huge uproar. If something goes wrong, everyone will be implicated. And yet, even after saying this outright, no one left the group. After assigning tasks, my father posted on the forum again. This time, he used a new account, appealing for help from the perspective of an An's guardian. Predictably, this post received almost no attention. In this illusory internet, who could trust anyone? Then, my father used another account to comment on his own post. At first, he pretended to be wealthy, but offered to donate on one condition. The person involved, Anin, had to learn to bark like a dog. One bark for 10,000 yuan. It was a cruel joke. A master's game of tossing a bone to a beggar. And my father really did have the video of Anin barking. He posted the video, begging this master to show mercy and donate some life-saving money. This was, in fact, illegal. It violated privacy laws and the law on the protection of minors. At this point, the situation had become hideous. But it still didn't get much attention. Which was, of course, expected. The real killing blow was when this master returned, laughing. Not only did he retract his previous offer, but he mocked them relentlessly. The poor are weak-willed. They're worse than dogs. If you have no money, just go die. What's the point of living? The group members then swarmed in, acting as an army to fuel the incident. They confronted the master. They shared the post to other forums, to QQ spaces, etc., hoping to get more eyes on it. The more people who hated the master, the more people would pity Anin. But it still wasn't working. In that era, the internet's influence wasn't that powerful. Print newspapers, mainstream media, those were the dominant forces. They weren't reporting Anin's story. What could be done? As the days passed, The heat died down. My father was distressed. The group members had tried so hard. Some playing the good guy, some the villain, arguing with each other to draw people in. But the traction was undeniably fading. Uncle Tran came to our house again. He said he had a trump card. My father vehemently disagreed. But Uncle Tran said it was too late. He had considered this trump card from the very beginning. It dawned on my father. No wonder you threw down your work ID. Uncle Tran said nothing, just kept smoking. The events that followed were bizarre. The master was doxxed by the enthusiastic netizens. His real identity, surprisingly,
You're
wasn't
listening
some
to a
tycoon,
story on
but a
Hecate
public
Audio.
servant. This was a bomb. It exploded online and spilled into the real world. Everyone who heard about it was furious. All media outlets reported on it simultaneously, expressing their condemnation. Uncle Tran was suspended and put under investigation. But at the same time, thanks to the group's efforts, Ann's tragic situation became widely known. Her medical expenses were no longer a worry, but Uncle Tran's career was gone. But his life was just beginning. As the summer holiday neared its end, he came to my house again. This time, he wasn't chain smoking. He said he had resigned and was preparing to start a small business. He said it with a smile, as if he had no regrets about his iron rice bowl. My father told him about an inn. The center had received a flood of donations, setting up a separate account, and An would soon receive treatment. But her illness would be a long road. Her obedience wasn't entirely due to her nature. The tumor had, to some extent, restricted her brain development, so for the rest of her life, forget excelling. She would be lucky if this didn't ruin her completely. My father asked him why. Why was he willing to pay such a heavy price to save an inn? Uncle Tran told a story. From the day Uncle Liu was arrested, they had all entered the house. But Uncle Liu was not nervous at all. He just called an inn. She looked around, shy of the strangers. Uncle Liu took her hand and told her to be good from now on. An just nodded. His hand was shaking. He was trying to hold back tears. Then he went with the police. That was the last time they saw each other. It ended just like that. He just calmly accepted it. My father was stunned for a long time, unable to react, until Uncle Tran added one more sentence. Perhaps you don't know how misery loves its unfortunate company. He himself was terminally ill. My father was even more bewildered. After a long pause, he asked, "How did you know he was terminally ill?" Uncle Tran smiled but didn't speak. Yet his eyes twinkled like stars. My father still looked incredulous, as if he was connecting more dots. He asked one of them, "Old Liu, where did he get a camera?" I didn't understand either, but things were definitely not as simple as my father had seen. Uncle Tran paused for a long time, then said his wife couldn't have children for physiological reasons. He wondered if he should adopt an inn. My father's gaze was distant, and he muttered, "The more we hated that man, the more we wanted to help an inn." Uncle Tran said nothing. My father spoke again, urgently. Did you promise him, long ago?" Uncle Tran waved his hand, saying no more. My father also said no more. The two sat in silence for a while. Uncle Tran stood up to leave. It was dusk. The evening clouds were a brilliant red on the horizon, and the setting sun slanted in through the open door. Uncle Tran walked into the light, heading toward the light.